Hello and welcome to today's video, where we will be discussing the differences between having two 10-inch subwoofers versus one 12-inch subwoofer in a home theater system. When it comes to setting up your home theater, choosing the right subwoofer can be a crucial decision. So let's dive into the pros and cons of each option. Size and power. Firstly, let's consider the size and power of the subwoofers. A 12-inch subwoofer is generally larger and more powerful than a 10-inch subwoofer. This means that it can produce deeper and more impactful bass sounds. However, having two 10-inch subwoofers can also provide a similar level of power and bass response, especially when placed correctly in the room.
Still wasting money on ads that get ignored? Let influencers tell your story. Promotional Pack connects your e-com brand to the right niche influencer to reach your target audience. Get more sales with less spent. Link in description.
Placement. Speaking of placement, this is another key factor to consider when deciding between two 10-inch subs or one 12-inch sub. With two subs, you have the option of placing them in different locations within the room to achieve a more even bass response throughout the space. On the other hand, with a single subwoofer, you may need to spend more time experimenting with placement to find the sweet spot where the bass sounds best. Cost. Cost is another important factor to consider. Generally speaking, two 10-inch subwoofers will cost more than one 12-inch subwoofer of similar quality. This is because you are essentially purchasing two separate units instead of one. However, the extra cost may be worth it if you are looking for a more even bass response throughout the room. Aesthetics. Next up, let's talk about aesthetics. Some people may prefer the look of two smaller subwoofers in their home theater setup, while others may prefer the sleek look of a single larger sub. This is ultimately a matter of personal preference, but it's worth considering if you are someone who values the visual aspect of your home theater setup. Room size. Room size is also a factor to consider when choosing between two 10-inch subs or one 12-inch sub. In larger rooms, having two subs can help to fill the space with sound and provide a more even bass response. In smaller rooms, however, a single subwoofer may be sufficient and less overwhelming. Music versus movies. Lastly, consider whether you will be using your home theater primarily for music or movies. If you are someone who enjoys listening to music on your home theater system, two 10-inch subwoofers may provide a more dynamic and musical sound, as they can handle different types of music better. However, for those who primarily use their home theater for movies, a single 12-inch subwoofer may be more than enough to provide the deep, rumbling bass that you need. Frequency response. The frequency response is the range of frequencies that the subwoofer can accurately reproduce. In general, a 12-inch subwoofer will have a wider frequency response than two 10-inch subwoofers, which means that it can produce lower frequencies more accurately. Amplifier requirements. Another factor to consider is the amplifier requirements of the subwoofers. Generally speaking, two 10-inch subwoofers will require more amplifier power than one 12-inch subwoofer of similar quality. Durability. Durability is also an important consideration when choosing a subwoofer. In general, a single 12-inch subwoofer may be more durable than two 10-inch subwoofers, as there are fewer moving parts and less chance of something going wrong. However, this can vary depending on the specific make and model of the subwoofers you are considering. Brand and model. Finally, it's important to consider the specific brand and model of the subwoofers you are considering. Some brands may be known for producing high-quality 10-inch subwoofers, while others may specialize in 12-inch subwoofers. It's also important to consider factors such as build quality, warranty, and customer reviews when choosing between different subwoofers. The decision between two 10-inch subwoofers versus one 12-inch subwoofer ultimately comes down to personal preference and the specific needs of your home theater setup. Both options have their advantages and disadvantages, and it's important to consider factors such as room size, placement, cost, and the type of content you will be using your home theater for. We hope that this video has provided you with some helpful information to make an informed decision for your home theater setup. Thank you for watching.